Okay, Steve Whale, the business interview for Suburban Rebels. And the first question, how did I join the business? I was in a band called The Blackout with Mark Brennan, Kev Boyce, and we had a very big local following. The night that Mickey Fitz and Lol Pryor, the manager of the business, come to see us, it was in a pub called The Ship in Plumstead, London. We did the show, and after Mickey Fitz and Lol Pryor asked us to join the business, reason being because they had a record deal with Secret Records and they wanted to present this sort of skunk punk and skinhead band, and we had the songwriting partnership of Mark Brennan and Steve Whale. So that's where it all started, in Plumstead, the Ship pub, and Mickey Fitz and myself hit it off really well, and we consequently pretty much knocked around, going to different places, Lewisham, etc. We had a sort of a strong relationship in terms of socially and in the band. So that's where it all started, if that makes sense. Second question is, how did I first start playing guitar? I first started playing guitar badly. It was something that for some reason I wanted to do, and later on in life I did find out why. My nan encouraged me, and she was the only one who encouraged me. She got a acoustic guitar out of the loft in her house, and it was the highest action I've ever seen on a guitar. I have to say the strings were probably about half an inch away from the actual fretboard. Now, as a result of that, my fingers become very strong very quickly. So, well done, Nan. God rest her soul. Punks and Skins, did they clash early on in the scene? Yes, they did. And it's a good question. And the reason why it's a good question is because we effectively saw that was the case, and we dealt with that, as in regards to Skunks, which is unification of punks and skinheads, and that was their music, and I like to think it still carries on today. So yes, it was a deliberate plan to bring punks and skins together. Fight the real enemy, don't fight each other. Blah, blah, blah. A Mark Brennan song. Fourth question, at the time, what other Oi bands were playing out and about with you? The great Blitz were predominantly the band, should we say, that was most in competition with the business. And the reason why I say that is because the chart positions at the time in England was the independent charts, and we were forever in competition with Blitz to see who could bring out a better single and go higher up the charts. So the Blitz, yeah, they were kind of our big rivals, and what great rivals they were. And obviously Nidge was a good friend of mine from those early days, and that would be pretty much right away back to Manchester at Mayflowers when we first played with Blitz, and the lineup was the Blitz, Test Tube Babies, and the Business. And what a show that was! It was completely from the front to the back. I mean, 800, 900 kids there, and I mean kids, because that's where it was all starting. And the famous story from that show is we went out for a drink. I went with Peter Test Tube looking to get a beer somewhere, and the pubs wouldn't take us. Every pub we went to, we just couldn't get they wouldn't serve us. So the famous song "Banned from the Pubs," that's where that come from, that particular show. Number 5, how did you end up covering the song Suburban Rebels by Gary Johnson? Well, it's not really a cover. It's actually a collaboration, I think is the correct word, with Gary Johnson. And I still think to this day that song and its lyrics, obviously by Gary Johnson, poem, lyrics, whatever you want to call it, is so relevant to everything today as it was then. What a great song that is. And I think to many people, I'm told, it's sort of like the anthem or the song that conjures up that feeling of that era, and deservedly so. Gary Johnson, Steve Kent, I think, is done a fantastic, amazing job. Number 6, how many times were the pubs smashed up by people that thought Oi was racist, like the time in Southall? Well, you're probably asking the wrong person. I wasn't in the band at Southall, so not too sure what to say to that. What I can say is the era that we're talking about, the Business come up through that era, was a very, very dangerous and violent times in the UK. It wasn't just the shows, it was just everywhere. It was a very, very difficult time in British history in terms of unemployment, nihilistic attitudes. It was pretty much everyone on the breadline. So it's no consequence that people were angry and wanted to smash things up. I guess that's the sign of the times. It's difficult trying to understand it now. It's just, it was at that particular time the way it was. So in terms of this is what I know. Obviously, I wasn't in the group when the Southall thing is. However, further down the line, it's sort of been documented that some of the journalists that were involved in that were told to write certain things about what went on. So that's what I do know. But yeah, I can't give you too much information on that because I wasn't there. Number 7, was it hard playing gigs after being boycotted because skinheads were dangerous? playing, yes, absolutely brilliant question. It's a point that I feel that a lot of street punk oi bands that can play endless amount of shows if need be and get pretty big platforms to play their music don't realise, and I'm sure they don't really care. However, it's always amuses me that they haven't had that situation where they actually can't put a record out and they can't actually play a show. And, you know, why would they understand something like that? Because they haven't lived through it. And it was only by sheer tenacity and brutal force that the business managed to kick those doors open again. And if I'm totally honest, I think every ounce of discomfort and negative reactions that we were constantly subjected to have all been worth it. To see such a vibrant developing scene in Europe and the UK at the moment, and long may it happen. So yeah, it was all worth it, definitely. Number 8. Who is Harry May? Well, Harry May, as I understand, it's probably a Steve Kent question. I believe he actually is a South London gangster, and a very well-known South London gangster, and he was retoured in a back of a car, I understand, by somebody. He was a sort of a bit of a Walter Mitty, so to speak, and was a fantasist. However, I believe that person had got to know of something of a gangster called Harry May, and he was a South London gangster. I believe that's what I believe, and I was told. So yes, Harry May does exist. Number 9. What does skinhead mean to you? Good question. I'm sure it's been asked many, many times. I effectively, myself, Steve Whale, was schooled in punk, and my best friends were generally skinheads, and it was something that you either were skinhead or punk. It didn't really matter. It was all punk anyway. We all loved punk. So skinhead for me, and I'm not, standing up saying that it's what I say should be taken as gospel. It's just my personal opinion. I'm very proud of the working class that's produced skinhead, and I fully understand the working class skinhead ethics because I come from London. And coming from London, as much as it sounds a bit of a boast, I'm really proud to come from London because it's given me so many great qualities living here. And I'm very proud of what Skinhead stands for and what its longevity it's held and is recognised all over the world. So that's what it means to me, working class youth that come out of London, and the ethics that the London gave to that skinhead movement are still important today. So moving on to number 10. What was the best show the business ever played? All right, this is my personal opinion, and I know exactly what show it was, and I still to this day can remember what it was. It was in a particular time when the Truth record came out in America, and the Truth record was getting so much attention, and the show was in San Francisco. I think it was the Maritime Hall or something like that. And I can remember standing on backstage, and before we went on, we'd done that circle of, which we didn't really do a lot of the time, but because there was such a big crowd there, I mean, it was huge. We was headlining, and we'd done that circle like you see the football players do, and so let's really make a great show. The band was like really in the moment at the time, so I got everyone together in a big circle. Come on, let's make this a really good show and everything. We was all psyched up. Went out on stage, and I'll never forget it. As I walked out on the stage, the roar from the crowd it nearly took me off my feet. I just could not. I was stopped in my tracks because it was that loud. And I've never forgot that from that day. What an incredible show it was. The band was so tight, on the ball, and Mickey delivered a great front person show. It's just the band was just absolutely brilliant on that night. So yeah, we're really happy with that show. And there's been so many great shows. There's too many to mention. Dropkick Murphys, touring with them every night was just great fun. And Agnostic Front, Madball, Suicidal Tendencies, Warzone, and Sick of It All. These shows were just sort of special because it was kind of groundbreaking in terms of we was breaking down barriers that existed between hardcore and punks in America, and it was an effort to try and unify the scenes in the States. And obviously some of the early shows with GBH and Blitz. I can remember a great show with Blitz in Manchester when I played the second set of drums on Youth. And with Blitz, and why I did it I don't know, but there was, if you listen to the drum on the track Youth by Blitz, it's quite tom-tom orientated, so I was kind of doing the drums with their drummer. So I was doing, and that was, there's a legendary show, I guess that was, with Blitz. So every show I've done, you know, going on to the Warp Tour was a big deal because we was kind of the first Oi band, I guess, for want of a better description, to be allowed on there, and we kind of held our own, and that was a big. But yeah, there's been many milestones, and we've been a very lucky band in terms of being accepted by so many great other bands, and what a journey. Going on to going on to question 11. What was it like being in a band with Mickey Fitz? Well, everyone needs to understand, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I said that Mickey and me hit it off really well. Now, we lived pretty much, 600 yards away from each other in the same town. We drank in the same pub with the same friends. So, as I said, being in a group with Mick was just, pretty much on our social life. We still knocked around together. So, I think a lot of people don't realise Mick and myself spent most of our lives together in a van or at a show. So he's part of my life and I'm part of his life. So that's the way it was. It's 24/7, and for many years. So we kind of grew up together. And the two of us kind of made that group through, made it happen and take it onto a level we could never have thought of. And it was, to say the least, an amazing journey that we went on. And obviously, it's difficult a lot of the time seeing, videos of Mick and the times that we, I can remember what show it was and where we was and things like that. So it's difficult because, whatever people say, he was my mate. And for many years, we built the whole thing together. And we go on to number 12. Is there still spirit in the streets of London? That's kind of a difficult question. There'll always be spirit in the streets of London. It's London, for Christ's sake. I don't notice or understand what it is until I leave London and go to another place, and I realise, what a great education it is to come up on the streets of London. As you put it, it's for me one of the greatest cities in the world. Full stop. There is nothing like that feeling of being in London. It's so vibrant and exciting, and it's got so much depth and colour and interest. There's always great ideas coming out of London, and I think there always will be. So yeah, that's all I can say. Yes, there's always spirit in the streets of London. Number 13. Excuse me. That's a good question. Skaghead. It's one of mine. I guess I was really question 13, Skaghead, which is effectively in Northbrook where all the gang and the crew all drank. In the Northbrook, there was a few of the original crew went into like smack and heroin, as you call it, and they, in front of my eyes, descended into a ridiculous situation where I remember, I won't mention his name because he's gone now, but I remember him asking me if I wanted to buy a push bike, and he blatantly said, "This is my mum's bike." So he's clearly stolen his mum's bike and wanted to sell it for smack. So now, bearing in mind, I knew this guy for many years and went away from that particular situation, with his mum's bike. No, I'm joking. Went away from that particular situation and thought, how is he reduced down to selling his mum's push bike for a bit of smack? So it kind of pissed me off a little bit. So that's why I put Skaghead, wrote it very quickly. I think it took me an hour or so to write that. But yeah, that's one of the original Northbrook crew, where that come from. Shame. Number 14, where did the band The Business come from? I think that's the manager. Actually, it might be a Steve Kent question, but I suspect it might have been Lowell, the manager. He's always full of good ideas, that guy. Right. Number 15. What inspired Blind Justice? That's a that's a good question. Blind Justice. Yeah, it was. I think in one of Mark Brenham's efforts, where it was actually originally a Blackout song. Blind Justice was a Blackout song, which I obviously mentioned 10 minutes ago, which was very popular locally. And to be fair to Blackout, a lot of their songs ended up in the Business first record, so they were pretty good songs. Blind Justice is about a Dutch guy, and it was an old film, which was a film about a Dutch community, and there was a person from outside the community come to live there, and there was a lot of resentment towards this person. And what happened? Something happened where a child was killed or something like that, and they blamed this person from the outside. And the person from the outside was convicted, and it wasn't him, effectively. So it was way back in history, so to speak, but it was an interesting story. Blind Justice. Okay, right. Question 16, Mouth and Trousers. All right. Mouth and Trousers was originally, without the lyrics, was originally a Blackout song, which I believe somehow the lyrics got changed to adapt to the sort of Business template, I guess. Originally, the music that you're hearing, the guitar riff and stuff, that was something I think I wrote in the Business. And then they come along and said, right, let's change these lyrics into this, and Mouth and Trousers, which wasn't really doing the original song any justice, but I guess you're mentioning it, so it must have hit a note with some people. Question 17. Well, Southeast 12, SE12, as most people in London know, is Lee Lewisham. That's what that means, and it's a homage to SE12, Southeast London. We're all the original Northbrook crew. All drank. That was our town and our area. So that's where it all started. Yeah. And number 18. What did the whole truth, nothing but the truth, do for the band when it come out? Well, it did everything. It was the game changer in terms of putting the business on the map, certainly in America. And I understand, I was, been told the aspect of that record was deliberately, from my side, used to brand street punk. And the actual facts of what went on was that I thought that we need to kind of come up, move away from the label Oi, because it was stopping us getting lots of shows and things like that. So I had this idea of rebranding under a different kind of name, which there was a lot of, it was reality punk thrown around. There was I thought about New Oi or something like that, and I thought, well, this still, the promoters and stuff are still going to be tagged with that Oi thing. So where I settled, there was a street punk thing that was used, and where I settled, I thought that is perfect for this kind of music. And what that actually stood for is, what it was the origins of Oi were overlooked, and the origins of Oi was very working class. Stand up for the working class and have pride in being working class. And there was a lot of that was overlooked. And I felt if we rebrand under street punk banner and make that stand for everything that Oi actually originally stood for, we can take this on to a different level. And that's why, if you noticed all the interviews that I did with regards to the Truth record, I was always mentioning the word, it's street punk, it's street punk, it's street punk, it's street punk, everywhere I went. So that's how that street punk banner got attached to the Oi. And even to this day, it's sort of Oi stroke street punk. Now, that's how it happened with regards to the Truth record. Now, what took it on to the level that I could not imagine was the fact that Dropkick Murphys come along and took that working class, stand up for your rights, pride in being working class thing onto a level I could never imagine. So, it wasn't us, the business, or anything that made it such a big thing. It was the Dropkick Murphys. They pretty much grasped the concept of what we were saying and took it to a different level. And that's my opinion, the way I saw what happened. But effectively, it was a concerted move to move it into street punk and make it, more accessible and on a bigger level. And I think, looking back as from today, I think that was definitely the case. It really is on a different level now and more worldwide than I've ever seen. So it's nice to see what's going on, and long may it continue. So, question 19, what inspired that album? The Truth, Whole Truth, Nothing But the Truth, is a snapshot of the working class crew, should we say. I'm trying to think of words that probably you would understand, or the gang or the youth that existed in Lewisham, in the Northbrook pub or our headquarters, or that was a snapshot of how we lived our lives and what our principles were. And we were all working class kids surviving on a daily basis. We, were always looking out for each other. If someone didn't have any money, we would help that person, or give them money, get them out of trouble. Looking at, if one person was in trouble, they would have to deal with everybody else. We all know what that, those principles are. We was all proud working class kids. As I said, coming from London, it gave us certain principles which we all identified with. So you're looking at The Truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, is a snapshot of that London working class, proud to be working class, and everything it stands for is on that album. So, question 20. Right, yeah, it's question 20. What inspired fear in your heart? Oh, right, yeah, fear in your heart. How did you create the guitar sound? Right, this is funny. Fear in your heart, a guitar sound. I picked Mick Fitz up, and we was going over to Ealing to record, and I had put my guitar in to be serviced by the local guitar shop. So I picked Mick up, and the two of us went down to the guitar shop to pick my guitar up. And basically, when I picked it up, I forget the guy's name. We kind of sort of knew him or whatever. He knew. Anyway, I said, right, yeah, it's great guitar. And he was just trying out this new pedal that had just come in that morning. And he had his guitar, and he was playing it as we come through the shop door. And it caught my ear, the sound that was coming out of this new pedal. So he said, oh, yeah, got your guitar and everything. And I said, what's this pedal that you've got that's making that amazing guitar sound? He said, yeah, it's great. It's just come in this morning. And he said, I'm quite impressed with it. I said, oh, right. Well, we're taking it to the studio, all right? So Mick looked at me as if I was joking. I said, no, we're taking it to the studio. And he said, okay. And he just gave it to us. And we walked out of the shop with this new pedal, and that's how we got that sound on Fear in Your Heart. And that was basically it. We just took it, and obviously gave it back to him. It wasn't like that. Anyway, question 21. How different are skinhead scenes in the USA from the UK? I like to think there is no difference. It's a brotherhood that I think is strong from both sides, and I can't I can't emphasise enough, really, the aspects of how what street punk Oi stands for is recognised throughout the world. Doesn't matter whether it's USA or the UK, it's all over the world. The working class kid who's got the same problems, whichever country you might come from, they identify with it, and that's what joins everybody together through the music. And it's an important aspect, because, you know, the idea of most of the governments is to separate and divide and rule. We all know that. And I feel that with Oi Street Punk, it's a unifying music, and that unification is through being working class and having to slog your guts out day after day just to put food on the table. And we've all got the same problems, and we're all identify with that, you know, looking out for our friends and watching each other's backs, and, you know, if you go down, everybody helps you up. We all identify with that. It's important. So there is no difference, I don't think, in my opinion, in skinhead scenes all over the world. And going on to 22, right. Question 22 is an interesting one. Dave Courtney ever come to business gigs? Dave Courtney has been to several business gigs, and what was the interesting part about all of it was, in my opinion, I felt, you know, the punk scene had a lot in common with what Dave Courtney stood for and what he'd done, because in the UK, obviously, he'd been in the newspapers so many times with all the court cases, and he was effectively against the system. He was taking on the system, and I, in the UK, could see that so many punks identified with that. So many times at business shows, I would introduce Dave Courtney on stage, and he would get the biggest cheer because of that fact. They like, you know, somebody that stands up to the system and has got the balls to take on the system. Not saying that you're always going to win, but that guy certainly gave them a run for their money, and he was very vocal, and, you know, the publicity that surrounds him is through the roof. So, yes, he does go to business shows, and obviously it's no secret that he's, you know, a personal friend of mine for many, many years. As I said, you know, that goes way back with, so that's how he kind of got involved in the business scene through me. And yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. A lot of the UK punk scene identifies with somebody that takes on the authorities and gives them a bit of a tough time. But yeah, so question 23, the fondest memory of playing with Mickey and the business. Well, the fondest memory is pretty much all of it, because Mick and me started a party that lasted for 12 years or more. Well, I say 12 years because that was pretty much one long run, and then there was like a few years here and there we was, you know, trying to build it up and make it work and stuff like that. But in one stretch, yeah, it was a party that Mick and me from the 80s went on. And, you know, and the other thing as well, you got to remember, Mick and me, if Mick did a band, he would predominantly have me in the as a guitarist or with him. So we've done a few other bands together and stuff like that. But it's been a great long party from start to finish. So so all of it's an amazing memory. 24, what was the business main goal as a band? Well, the main goal predominantly was when the business didn't have a record deal, couldn't get an agent, couldn't get anywhere to play, and that was a time when oi bands wasn't allowed to play, and every show was pretty much closed down or wasn't allowed. So that era was like a desolate few years. So obviously Mick and me spent a lot of our time trying to work out or try and be tenacious in making it happen. And it's of no secret, obviously, the big launch and the big sort of change in all of that era was the fact that we obviously played Fuck Reading, and we kind of obviously hijacked the show, and that's what happened. We it's documented, obviously, the fact that we were given 10 minutes from Madball and I think Agnostic Front. They gave us 10 minutes each, so we got 20 minutes to go on stage and do our numbers. And, and the crowd reaction was obviously the changing scenario for the business, then being allowed to get back on that, stage and have a say in the punk scene again. And that's thanks to, to American bands. And also, and I can remember, obviously, Gene October, which, was well documented in terms of Gene gave us, I believe, 20 minutes to play at the Marquee, which we've always been, eternally grateful for. And so there was a lot of goodwill for the business to play, and thankfully it was through being tenacious, it all happened. And I think in terms of what's going on today, it was just as well we did be tenacious about making the oi platform available to everybody. So that's pretty much it. That was our main goal, just to get the oi scene back up and running, and give this great working class music a platform to be listened to all over the world. And obviously, I think you had obviously some of the great bands come out of that scene since, so it's all been worth it. 25 last words. My last words are, I really am excited about some of the new groups coming up through the oi street punk scene. Really enjoy seeing what they add to the scene. Very impressed with obviously Old Firm Casuals, and you got sort of this whole new generation, your grade twos, all coming up, adding something, their version of what the Oi street punk stood for. And, you know, there's a lot of European bands which are taking it on and taking it to a different level. You know, your Booze and Glories and your Evil Conducts, you know, Jenny Wu coming on board. There's a really great inspiration going on. So, yeah, very excited about the future and where it's all going to go. And so, with regards to the business, I feel that the tribute shows to Mickey Fitz have really elevated Mickey Fitz and made people remember what a great singer and his contribution to Oi and punk, and I think it's, for myself, you know, really great to see people saying, you know, good comments about what he's contributed to Oi and Oi, the street punk scene all over the world. So that's a great reward in itself. So, you know, I hope that the street punk Oi scene carries on for many, many years, and you know, and it's great that fanzines like Suburban Rebels, which is, you know, a pretty good name, I think, is covering it still and making, because there is no money in punk, we know that, and I'm sure, you know, Suburban Rebels and, you know, many other magazines, fanzines, blogs, all do it for the love of punk, and that's why we all do it, and I certainly have done from the early days. I absolutely love punk rock, and so many people that I know do, and this is you know, a music that we all celebrate and are connected to in every way. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to the new generation coming through and taking it to the next stage. And that's it. So, thank you, Peter. I don't think you could get much more out of me, so I'm going to send this over to you now. Cheers.